Welcome back to First Up. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm playing with some new toys I got for my birthday this morning. These are versions, high-tech versions of new speed guns, which should be taking effect in Trinidad and Tobago sometime soon. Now, this is some James Brown stuff here now. I almost said the wrong word there, but wow. Good morning, Brent Batson, who is the director of the National Road Safety Council in Trinidad and Tobago. Wow,
well, maybe the James Bond version would be much smaller.
True. Yeah. Come here for
well, to get smaller than that one.
Tell us about the importance. Arrive Alive and the Road Safety Council have been calling for the introduction of higher forms of technology to deal with errant drivers and deal with drivers who break the speed limits for some time now. We have had pronouncements from the Minister of Works that the technology would be tested in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Certainly that's good news, but there have been concerns also about whether legislation is up to date to include the use of this technology to do its job.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me this
You're
morning. Good to see everybody again. You know, I just want to backtrack just a little bit. The critical importance attached to this entire road safety management system cannot be overemphasized. We had an excellent example yesterday where a pedestrian, a security guard, was run over, and wasn't just run over, he was decapitated, he was dismembered, and literally parts of his body strewn all over the road. Now, again, this is somebody's father, brother, whatever it is. The problem, what's happening right now, is that there's no consequence, you know, to people's actions. So people do what they want. They drive as fast as they want. They drive recklessly as they want because there's no fear of the law. And these are the things that have to change critically in order to actually change the mindset and now change the road user behavior, or else we're just going to continue in the trend where we're going right now. The thing about it is that what's important, legislation, like I said, but tools, equipment, and training. Speed management is one of the areas where the biggest hole is right now. The speed time distance model using the archaic stopwatch methods, for best example, cannot be done at night. And when you look at some of the worst fatalities, that's the time when you know the speed intends to take place. So again, we're trying to close that gap as early as possible. Legislation, good question. That's what everybody's asking for. What I will tell everybody is that right now, because we actually helped draft it, there's speed management legislation before the Chief Parliamentary Committee. And so hopefully, and I have to say that because now it's in the realm of the government, and I, for want of a better word, the politicians, for them to prioritize this piece of legislation and pass it through so the officers could begin using them. But even before we start to use them, like I said, the officers have to go through training and certification. But just like the breathalyzer and all these other things, it'll just become an approved device, that's all, for the TTPS to use.
Brent Batson, let's talk about this technology specifically. The way this works is that you basically record that moment in time, and the information is sent to a central database for processing. So does this mean that there's no need for the officer to run down the person who was speeding? You just simply get a ticket in the mail? No,
unfortunately, we haven't reached that far as yet. The good thing, the legislation includes photo evidence enforcement, which is what you're referring to. So what you guys have in front here are excellent example of two different types of devices, because your question hits two specific topics. One is the recording capabilities. So the gun that he's holding there is a full evidential kit, they call it. It could record video, photo stills. It has license plate detection capabilities. It can do phenomenal things now, because what it does now, it could detect distance between cars also, to know if you're following too close. You could charge a person for breaching fallen distance rules, driving unsafe,
and all of that.
Nice. Also, it has a capability to do GPS specific, so that, for example, even if you want to contest the evidence, besides you're saying, well, it didn't happen here, really, well, these are the X and Y coordinates on the road.
Yeah, so let me just go through what the screen has so people know. It has operational name, Officer Joe Brown, location, Area Peter Avenue, video mode, operator ID, speed limit, capture speed, video tracking mode, memory usage, language, and offset capture. So it's pretty extensive in terms of the data that's captured by it. And certainly as Jesse indicated earlier on, there's a port that can download information for computer
That's right.
straight from the hard drive, so an officer can't tamper with this to have that element put into the case.
That's right.
The data can go also straight to a hard drive wirelessly if they employ that Wi-Fi method.
correct.
So that this goes straight to some central database and goes straight to the courts. So there's no evidence. There's the chain of custody of evidence is not broken at all.
Yeah, that's right. So, but what's important is that I don't want to give persons a false sense of confidence that what's happening in licensing office, for example, the computerization, is still ways behind this. So, for example, getting the tickets in the mail, we're not going to reach there until we fix that problem. And I always tell people, if we're serious about national security, your focus has to be your Department of Motor Vehicles. Crime is mobile. We need to get serious about the motor vehicle record. So, therefore, what has to happen, even if we use, for example, let's say the officer was unable to stop you for whatever reason, or the backup vehicle, which is the chase vehicle, which still has to be employed under the current system. You would still have to, officer will still have to go down to license office, trace your registration plate, and to issue the ticket, but you'd have to proceed by summons. That would be the difference as compared to your fixed penalty notice.
Okay. In terms of this device that I'm holding now, how different is this from the one that Paul has?
Right. I'm so glad you asked that, because
mine is bigger.
Exactly. Well, here's the funny thing.
Well, you're a big guy, Paul.
We're on RP Avenue. Paul, let me give you a joke, right? So people saw this and they're like, look at the size of that thing. And da-da-da-da-da, boy, that thing's so big, the officers can't hold that. It depends on what you want. The one that's in your hand is actually also a speed gun. It doesn't look like it looks like a little binocular, isn't it so?
Yes.
And literally it's going to do this.
It's in disguise.
Yeah, it's in disguise. So it will fire the laser also, detect your speed reading, except it's not going to record. And as I always tell people, it's just like before, for example, when you did your speed time distance with your stopwatch, you didn't record what vehicle it was. So, but what you got was a speed reader attached. So that's all it's a speed reader.
Can the data that comes from these devices be applied as evidence in court presently?
I know there's a question in regards to the qualification of the evidence. These currently I'm not too sure, because what would have to happen is, like I said, is that there's a special procedure the police would have to go through, like you said, to maintain that custody of evidence chain. And what is important is that the legislation puts it in place.
But so that's the legislation that you guys have been working on that would make sure that this will be admissible.
Yes, not only this, but it goes further. The cameras that are already on traffic lights can now be used for photo evidence.
So it's holistic. What's the difference then between this technology, which is high tech, and the stopwatch with marked off distances that they can do the calculation? Because certainly the issue of custody of chain of evidence, if an officer has distance recorded digitally, it's actually more hold proof than someone writing 50 miles an hour because you traveled X and Y in whatever distance with a stopwatch. A stopwatch is, by a comparison, an archaic piece of technology that is being employed now that has been used to charge people with breaking the speed limit. What's the difference legally?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a good example. Oh, legally. The question. Well, you see, that was just it. Nowhere have I seen anywhere where the question regards to the stopwatch being the device that's used as a measurement device is gazetted or anything like that. So, and this is why I always say the magistrates are saying, listen here, let's charge them and let's see where it goes. Yeah, because if you have enough... But
saying that is one thing, but someone getting a particularly good barrister and saying, well, in this court of law, this is not registered, this is not gazetted, and it doesn't apply in any legislation in Trinity, because so you can't use it against me.
Well, okay, that may be your argument, but again, if the expert witness comes, for example, the laser tech agent, and explain to you, listen here, this has nothing to do with anything fancy. This is speed, distance, time measurement. All right, when the laser fires over distance, it comes back. You pass X, Y, and you divide it, and you get your calculation, and that's it, full stop.
We're going to take a break. We're with Director of the National Road Safety Council, Brent Batson. We will come back with more after this break.
We're back here on First Up the First Stop in your busy day. Director of the National Road Safety Council, Brent Batson, is still in with us. And we're talking about speeding. And Brent, one of the first things that you said is that we need to have consequences attached to infringement of the traffic regulations. And this is great, but if people aren't going to face harsh consequences, for example, you speed too much, you're ticketed a number of times, what happens to you? You just pay a fine, you don't get to lose your license for a period of time or forever. If you are involved in a fatal accident that you cause a death or serious bodily harm to someone. So what's the point then if we don't put those other support systems in place, even as we go into the technology?
And that's an excellent question, because what's missing right now is the ability to use the penalty point system. The Motor Vehicle Authority bill that is coming to replace the MVRT, sorry, to replace the license office, brings in now a computerized system, so that now the court and everybody is tied into track points. And then that will now tie into the police database. So the police will know how much points you have in your license, whether or not it's suspended, all those kind of stuff.
I have a question about that regarding the licensing office and computerization, but we have
Kirap
holding.
Yes.
Kirap, you're on the air. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
I applaud this initiative. I think that this has been long overdue. However, this is just one aspect, an important aspect though, about road safety, because one other aspect we have to enforce is the bad driving. You can't enforce bad driving with a speed gun, because people cut in on or they come up on the side. They like, but for instance, Trinity heading west, when you had to swing into Trinity Mall, people come on the left lane, and when the light turns green, they squeeze in, and all this kind of nonsense that people do every day on the road. Yeah. You need police officers on the road to monitor this driving on the shoulders and all these bad driving that cause little, if you enforce these little things, then everything will fall into place, But
that's right.
Well said. Okay.
Thanks very much, Kirap. Just on that point about the bad driving, how much of that is a function of people who bought their driver's licenses, did not really study the regulations or pass the exam or even do a driving test?
You see, you're asking for some empirical data that I can't answer.
Okay.
Without a doubt, that would be a significant issue attached to it, because if the driving test is a test of competency, and people are not going to a legitimate competency assessment, then we're literally ripping
But to me, that's of less concern than people who have legitimately got their license. And I'll continue after we take Glencoe, because Glencoe is holding. Glencoe, go ahead, please. Sorry about that. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I agree with the last caller. In addition to which, why not make a driving permit difficult to get, but very easy to lose, right? In the sense that when you have your driving permit, if you on the nation's road, because remember, a vehicle becomes a weapon in a person's hands at that point in time. Last night I traveled from the west to deep south, and there was a series. For sure, there was a number of small accidents on the highway. Yeah. I mean, it's taking a real chance to drive on the roads of Trinidad and Tobago. And although these things may prove efficient, Trinidad is a 90 wonder. You know what I mean? And
thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, thanks very much, Glencoe. Brent, do you want to respond to some of what the caller said?
With two things. With regards to the driving behaviors, it is the most unenforced areas of laws that are critical for public safety. Again, this is part of an overall plan that is coming, bringing the tools, and then if you think about it, what's happened? Because policing of roads has been allowed to be, for want of a better word, put on the back burner, whereas there's been an exponential increase in motorization, but a depletion of law enforcement resources to deal with it, and systems that didn't match up to technology-wise.
But is it a lack of or decrease in law enforcement resources? I see police officers standing up and people are breaking the law right there and not enforcing the laws. We started hot and sweaty in Trinidad and Tobago with the cell phone legislation, which we went through quite a bit of pains to enact in this country.
Yeah. And also the breathalyzer.
And the breathalyzer that are not being enforced presently.
Well, I would have to say that there needs lots of room for improvement. And I have to say, you'll find a bit of defense because I actually work for the police, right?
Seatbelts also, seatbelts. I mean, as you said, the simple laws, you're getting more and more complex laws, and the laws are not being enforced.
Therefore, what's going on right now, and I'm just asking everybody to hold straight, and you will see that all this has been coming as part of a very, very powerful and exciting initiative. But I always tell people, you know, the problem is there's so much talk about plans, and then you see nothing. So I always prefer the way to, let's just see. Let's stop talking.
We've been doing it we all the time,
you know,
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for
We've been talking to Brent Batson, Director of the National Road Safety Council.
Careful, expensive equipment.
I just destroyed it. More after this break.
Out of the